somebody was asking about what an inner cap is. So inner, as in like your inner ear, I don't know, your inner voice, INNER. So I've been blessed with a bunch of flimsy dust caps, paper dust caps. This is treated paper on one side and then it's untreated on the other side. And using scraps, basically this is like, I don't want to call it waste material, but I got a lot of them for free, for very, very cheap. And what I do is I put epoxy in this area, like a swirl, put the two pieces together, and I twist them in opposite directions to smear and distribute the epoxy as evenly as possible. And then what I do is I put it face down so that way it creates a convex. And then it goes over this little joint. I don't want to put it on there because it's still a little sticky. This is a 13W7 I'm working on for a guy in the West Valley. But put it on, you put a small weight, it doesn't need to be a lot, in the center, and then you put a bead to sort of seal it in, and that's your inner cap. And what that does is it holds back the pressure. You don't want this inner area vented. It doesn't serve any purpose. Lots of companies still do it for years. Even Recoil still does it, which is dumb. That's what the pole piece is for. That's what the pole cooling is for. And it does, as good a job as it can. You can't get any better cooling by venting here in the cone. It doesn't work like that. All that does is it causes pressure to leak through the cone from the enclosure and then push up on the dust cap, and then the dust cap pops off. So the reason for the inner cap is to seal it in so that there's no fucking way that's going to fucking happen, because you don't want that. So, and then what happens is it holds back the pressure, so then you can put a decorative dust cap, an outer cap, a pretty cap that only has this little, glue lip, and you can use E6000 or some sort of rubber cement and put that on there, and it actually holds pretty good. On a lot of these heavy duty woofers, I use more of the Devil's Jizz, which is our thermo resistant. It's like a high temp, high shock epoxy. It works really good for this and a bunch of other applications, industrial applications, things like that. But that's what I use to hold down some of the bigger, heavier dust caps with more mass. Again, you're talking about inertia. You're talking about Newton's laws of physics. There's going to be more. If there's more mass, it's going to jerk more, and so you want something really secure to hold that in place. Again, E6000 is okay for some applications, like for poly, for like this polypropylene plastic. For polypropylene, you really only can use. You want to scratch that up. You don't necessarily need to scratch the cone. Unless it's what was it? DD, and also the DC cones. There's some DC. They're from DC Audio. I guess Rusty sold them to him or whatever. But for some reason, the E6000 doesn't really stick to that cone surface, and so I actually scratch it up to reveal the paper that's underneath, and then you got to make sure your E6000 isn't all dried out, and you want to put it on and nice and fresh, and put down a healthy amount, bead or whatever, and then you put it on this side too, so that you make as least chances as possible. You want to ensure your bets. You want to hedge your bets. You want to make sure, you want to bet on a sure thing. You don't want to fucking gamble. That's why you go see a prostitute like a professional instead of some dickhead going to a bar so you can just slip it into some slut while she's passed out behind the dumpster. Be a gentleman, go find a hooker. But so you put the inner cap on, and then you do the outer cap, and then you let them sit for 24 hours, and then that's it. That's one of the reasons why I'm so slow, is I use the good materials so that, again, the service life of the woofers that I build are about 30 years. 20 years, 30 years. Typically the surround is the first thing that wears out. And mostly just because there's what's called VOCs the plastic. It's a new car smell. Those are VOCs, and they're like tiny particles, but they come off in the form of fumes, and it sort of just dries it out, and that just happens over time. So sometimes when I'm picking through surrounds that have been sitting there, and I notice that they crumble or they get brittle, I just fucking throw the whole thing out, because you don't want to use that. It's just you're asking for trouble, and you're asking for a return, and again, that's a defect. And that's why I back my stuff up for 3 years. It should be fine working as long as you use it within parameter. You take it outside parameter, then you end up like Ray crying, and I'm like, shut your fucking vagina. But 3 years is actually really, really reasonable, considering that these are top of the line parts. It doesn't really get any better than this. And so that's why service life is easily 10 to 12 years, and then even 20 to 30 years. If you take care of it, if it's inside, et cetera, et cetera. But anyways, that was an inner cap. So somebody was like, do you have an example? Do you have a video? I'm like, this is why I use an inner cap. And again, I said this in another video. Basically, anything that's about 400 watts and more, I use an inner cap. You don't have to. And that's one of the things I've complained about for Sundown is, here he is on like a ZV5, and he's just, what he did was he made the polycap with a really big goofy lip, so it has more surface area, more grab, and then he just puts it on there with some rubber cement, and they come off. Don't do that. Stop being lazy. But I make lots of money and I'm a cool bro. And it's like, again, not everything needs to be about money. Well, then your customers are waiting forever. I'm like, you got a big business loan. You can hire some people. I don't have that shit. I don't have a business. But anyways, I love you guys. It's 3 in the fucking morning. I gotta go to bed. So later.